2 months ago.
Was from the receipts?
Well, I have notes that from, oh yeah, right here, 89, which is Herbert talking about Greenhaven, you know, various, some more things on Harry Smith, and of course Rogers Bookstore. And I need that diary for writing about Rogers Bookstore. And a couple, I guess. Ah, yes, I have it right here. I put it in red. Yeah, it was August 14th, 1992. Cat Comfort. I figured get some organization in my disorganized life, even though this isn't particularly organized.
Can you read it? You want to read it? The Cat Comfort citation?
No, I just put it that it's Cat Comfort. I have the date, so I can find it right now, if you want. But I figured I'm going to use these things for future writings.
Yeah.
And to put it down. And then after 30 years, I lose that diary. And I know it's here, but damn it, those things could disappear. And that has, that's an important year. Everything was happening then. Oh, I have a thing from, something from Barry Miles's thing. This is the one I use in my story, and of course the cops nicknamed him the Creep, and sometimes when his behavior was particularly despicable, they would ban him from the square. It's complete fiction, And also some things from my personal things, like you mentioned the violence by Phil and William Burroughs too. Because in one incident when I guess they were robbing somebody sleeping in the subway, who woke up, and Phil and Burroughs both physically attacked the guy, something Herbert never would do. Oh yeah, somewhere on that book is Bill is pushing heroin with Bill Gaines. Now that's interesting. They don't mention about Burroughs. So a lot of the things that Herbert would not deny, they deny that Bill did the same thing because it would put him down as a street junkie. Yes. Good. And Bill, of course, came for money. And next. Okay, this is Criminal Friends. Oh yes. Next, Bill pushing heroin with Bill Gaines, another of Herbert's criminal friends. Well, Burroughs is doing the same criminal act. I'm just, but they push it on Herbert. Oh yes, and Criminal Friends, and Allen Ginsberg. Oh yes, something. And Allen Ginsberg liked to watch him steal and even pawn tickets. Oh no, that might be my thing, because he pawned tickets to everyone, including his brother, his lawyer brother. I didn't know it. There was some information from Barry Miles's book that's. Oh, sort of like, oh yeah, and Bill Gaines had the same utter callousness as Huncke. That's and then he said about Phil, he killed himself, and I put in X. No. And you're the only one. You know, everyone has in that he committed suicide. And and the truth is much more interesting. Yeah, it's just, and makes more sense. Oh yeah, there was something interesting in this. I don't know if you know that. Mentioned Herbert arrested Joan with Whitey, and Herbert government and Spence. I guess of Spencer's pad it must be. Spencer took her in at his apartment at 250 West 47th Street. And before Joan went into Belleville. Now that's an interesting thing. I didn't know that if he's right on this, that Spence, when Joan was strung out and everything, took her in before she went into Bellevue. It has to be the same one.
Spencer's pad.
Yeah, it has to be 47th Street and everything. So and he just says Spencer, known as Spencer, so it has to be the same one. So that was an interesting.
That's the same pad that
That Herbert wrote?
Armistice Day, and when the war was over, people had music out the windows and dancing in the street.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not the same one when Herbert is strung out and looks out and see the circus, parading there.
No, that was it. That was
The
different.
elephants there, man. So, yeah, what are you on? He said, no one took a look. Yes. I don't know, Joan and Bill. This might be messed up here as a good father. Said he's not to his stepchild, and I mentioned the comment that he told Herbert once. They had these bottomless pits. That if we dropped it down there, no one would ever find it. And he thought he meant it. It's Bill's. Yeah, this was work copying from the book, little things from the book. In the old days, I might have put it in the copy machine. Oh, what's it, Joan? Oh yeah, Texas, Grass, New York City. Herbert's life. Oh yes, they evidently said with Huncke's help, when they came back to New York, with Huncke's help, found a buyer and made about $100. Herbert never mentioned that. I just said it wasn't worth it. But once again, the Herbert connection, just like when they're in Texas, they sent Bill and Joan sends Herbert out to Houston or whatever to get the drugs. If he gets caught with those drugs, that could almost be a life sentence in those days. What was it? So visiting an Italian friend of Herbert's in Yonkers, and he overdosed and passed out, and Joan managed to revive him. So he had some nice things about Panagrady and Joan, but also some things that were quite. Oh yeah, somewhere, I guess towards the end, what was it? She said that Joan no longer had that worshipful attitude towards Bill. She and Lucian Carr were evidently close. Well, yeah, there's a quote from Lucian Carr. Joan and I were close. Um, um, and saying that she was very, very bright and very exciting and very much in command of various tight situations she got into. She was sort of in command of everything but herself, you know. She was quite a woman. But once again, Lucian Cole is one of those that thinks it was suicide, which it wasn't. And Hal Chase who basically disliked Burroughs and had been very close to Joan, I guess to Bill Morgan, she said, what was it? I guess she wanted to die and she offered Bill a chance to kill somebody. The William Tell stuff was a sham. Was a sham. Death was a put-up thing to release Bill, to let him commit the ultimate crime. He was childless about things like that. Joan gave her life for Bill, and that was an interesting. And this is Burroughs. She was an extraordinary person, one of the more perceptive and intelligent people I've known. And this is Burroughs. Interesting because Burroughs with women is not. And this is Panagrady at the Dakota, 8 rooms, daughter of a heiress, Louise Mavie St. John, and Hungarian aristocrat Zibor de Chinatsky or something like that. No one was quite sure where the money came from, but there seemed to be plenty of it. The problem was, and this is coming some of the lies, was in keeping out people like Herbert Huncke and Harry Smith, in quoting somebody else, shameless mooches, as Burroughs called them, who were forever hitting on her for money and at the same time insulting her. Now, as you know, that Herbert was one of the few that really appreciated her and dedicated his first book to Panagrady. And somewhere in my diary I mentioned, you always spoke well of Panagrady, and well, she saved my life. You know, so once again, that he didn't appreciate her was a lie. Oh yes, and William Panagrady, Burroughs on Panagrady, said he would send these Christmas candies. I think they were chocolate-covered whiskey, you know, things, and she knew he loved those. And his comment was, "She was the soul of generosity." And so Burroughs just didn't want to be romantically involved, but really did appreciate her. And here's also some of the out-and-out lies. When Cabo was in his teens, 16 or 17, Richmond, Virginia, in drag, selling himself as a transvestite hustler to buy heroin, his dad, I think he was a lieutenant commander or something, I guess had heard about that and went looking for him. And in the car, Cable thinks it's a customer, and he approaches, and you know that scene, and it's his father. And then this is the out-and-out lie. Herbert Huncke told a similar story. He was picked up by the police for hustling, and when his father arrived at the station house, the there was Huncke in a dress. His father threw him out. Huncke and Cabo had a lot in common. Cabo got busted for pushing drugs and did 8 months in jail. There he put himself under the protection of the most powerful inmate he could find, which of course meant that he owned Cabo sexually. Now, once again, in my story, I deal specifically with some of these things and correcting the lies. In mentioning the fact that Herbert, when he's in jail, clobbered a fellow inmate over the head with a shoe that was making overtures, and he started calling up. I forgot also, fucking fag, this or something like that. And some black inmates who saw what happened said, "That's okay. We saw what happened. You're all right." And of course, Herbert never wore a dress, and it took me a couple of days before I figured out what he was talking about. And of course, that's the pink briefs and that I don't. And it was one nice. Oh yes, and then he does have Herbert Huncke told Allen Ginsberg about the setup and Burroughs knew it was unlikely Herbert would set him up, but because of that, he figured it was time to leave New York, and maybe that's when he left for Kansas. But once again, it doesn't honor Herbert for not ratting. It just said knew he wouldn't rat on me. Yes. But this is all I copied from, because I needed to get this down before I wrote my story, because I wanted to put that in and correct it. So I'm holding on to that because that could be of future use.